Thank you for coming to CPW. You may know us as Center of Photography at Woodstock, or you may know us as CPW. Either way, we're here in our new home in Kingston, New York, and you're here for our weekly edition of Meet the Artists. So my name is Sarah Danziger. I'm the Education Program Manager here. Quick note, if you need to use the restroom, you can take the stairway up there, go to the end of the hall, and follow the signs for restroom. And a couple other announcements. We have our 2025 summer workshop brochure that tells you all about our summer workshops running through June through August. We also have scholarship support. So if that's something you need in order to be able to take one, please email me at education@cpw.org. As you can see on the rotating slideshow, we also have a portfolio review with 9 pretty incredible reviewers that I put together, if I don't say so myself. That's a great opportunity to get feedback on your work from some pretty knowledgeable people. So please, if you want to know more about that, come find me at the end. We also have an amazing opening scheduled for this Saturday from 5 to 8. We're opening this show that you're not supposed to be seeing right now, which is called Sensual Empathy, which is Larry Fink's work, curated by Lucy Sant. And we have The Rose, curated by Justine Kurland, and our curator here at CPW, Marina Chow. We also have a reading room of 10 by 10's most recent publication, which is called Protest, or Flashpoint, exclamation point, Protest in Print from 1950s to Now. And that room is very cool, as well as an exhibition of teamwork by Place Corps fellows who will be graduating from their year-long program. And they've been doing a photo class here once a week for the last year. So please come out and party with us and celebrate. And if you actually really want to see the work, come back after that, because it's going to probably be a big party. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce tonight's esteemed guest, Pete Mauney. And Pete is a photographer and photographic technician. Mauney received his MFA and BA in photography at Bard College, with a prior 2-year stint at NYU in film, which, and I quote, he is still recovering from the MFA, yeah, exactly. So he has worked with a number of distinguished clients, supporting them on a range of levels, such as art reproduction photography, he's for hire, exhibition printing, and drum scanning. For the past decade, Mauney's personal work is focused on documenting fireflies and airplanes in the evening, applying his technical knowledge and skills to accurately depicting an accumulation of time and space. His work has been featured on NPR, Wired, Chronogram, and Colossal, to name a few, and is in multiple collections, including the Morgan Library and the Black Gold Museum in Saudi Arabia. Very cool. So I also note that he has some books to look at. They are not the actual copies for sale. If you would like to buy one, you can scan this QR code that's over there, and you can get your copy sent directly to your home. Without further ado, let's welcome Pete to the mic. Thanks. Or are you not at the beginning? Okay.
All right. Yep. Great. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for coming out. It's kind of a murky night out there. Can you hear me? All right. I think I'm going to try and talk into this thing a little bit. I'm a little fidgety, so I like to move around. The idea of trying to stand by a microphone doesn't really work for me. Thanks. Welcome. I don't really structure these things. I have a little bit of a structure. I have a few subjects that I touch on, mostly going to go through a slideshow and talk about the work, start with an anecdote, and sort of go from there. I do welcome, if questions are urgent, you can ask during the presentation. If they are not urgent, we can talk afterwards during, a Q&A. And, on a more personally, I always think about everybody who preceded me, and by everybody, I mean humanity. But when I got here tonight, I actually almost cried, and it wasn't because I was about to do this. I've done this kind of thing a few times, and it's fine, and I've survived. But what I didn't expect is that I was going to be in this room of Larry's photographs. And Larry was a close friend for decades, roommate, stoner buddy, office partner, teacher, mentor. I know a lot of things about Larry, like if you have Ben and Jerry's or weed in the house, it'll be gone. But one of the other things that I know about him is that he is one of the most spectacularly, naturally talented photographers I've ever encountered in my life, and I learned an immense amount from him. And so, yeah, it was a little, I'm not going to say intimidating because, well, I know a little too much about Larry, and I don't even know if I've even printed some of these in here because I've worked for him a little bit over the years, but I highly, highly recommend to everybody that you come back and see Larry's show, which is opening on the 24th. Is that correct? This Saturday it's opening. So I don't know if I'll be making it to that because I might have hit my sell-by date for the week after tonight, but we'll see. Anyway, check his stuff out as well. Not to divert away from me. So I think maybe we'll start in the dark. Can we start? Can we turn the lights off? Because I figure we all kind of start in the dark, and I'm a little bit in the dark technically. Believe it or not, some people don't, but it's true. So I have a little story about one night I was out photographing. I was way out on a back road outside of Kinderhook, and by back road, it's kind of back road not even drunk drivers drive on. Like it didn't go from one place to another. It's kind of a useless road, just two farms on it. I'm down there for a few hours. Finally, the first car comes through, and it's a sheriff's vehicle, and they have every single light blazing, every single one, the side lights, everything going. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. Guy obviously sees me. I wear highway, high vis gear when I'm out photographing. Pulls over and he's like, can I help you? I'm like, no, I'm fine, thanks. I'm out here photographing fireflies. He's like, fireflies? Bullshit. I drive through here every night. I never see fireflies. I said, well, turn off your lights. And he said, excuse me? I said, no, seriously, turn off all of your lights. And to my utter amazement, he did. And he left the red tactical light on, and that was an acceptable compromise for me. And we talked for a few minutes. Kids these days, that kind of shit. He was a little bit younger than me. And suddenly, and I've kind of gone through this a few times, suddenly, like, I notice he's looking past me. And he goes, holy shit. Because it was just full of fireflies, and he had never once seen them. And he drove through that every night. It's two completely alternate realities coexisting. this was not that night. This was actually a composite of many nights. So, but it was one of those stories that made me think. I try not to think too much about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, because I think like I have a thinking problem already. So the more thinking I do, the more, I don't know. I try to just go with it. And that's partly Larry's influence, actually. He once told me, Mauney, go out in the middle of a field and get really drunk on a bottle of wine and photograph that, which is beautiful. I said, I don't drink. He said, well, you smoke weed, right? I said, yeah. I said, well, do that. And I don't know, I sort of have ever since on a certain level. And it's a weird thing working out in the middle of the night. It's a secret existence. And you meet a lot of people. I end up spending a lot of time out on the side of the road, traffic, light pollution, you name it. It's all out there. Oh, mosquitoes. A lot of mosquitoes, ticks, learn about ticks. I've now had Lyme disease twice, which both times from photography, once in the summer, once in the winter, believe it or not. And so I'm going to try and avoid that in the future. But before I got Lyme disease, and I was discovering fireflies, I'd been photographing at night. I've been photographing at night on some level or another for about 40 years, at least, since high school. And I've just always felt comfortable at night. I love being out in the night. I feel oddly safe. And you notice things. And I always found when I was doing like these long handheld exposures on film in the 90s, like angst-ridden stuff out with my friends in the moonlight, I'd get all these fireflies, and first reaction was like, geez, those are a pain in the ass to retouch out because they look like dust. And, so I've been aware of them for a long time. And it wasn't until sometime, I don't know, probably 2012, that they started entering my digital photographs. And I realized that digital photography offered me the opportunities to try and express in still images what I was experiencing to some extent, but also it had to be more interesting than that. For years, as I say, I let the bugs do the heavy lifting. There's a certain point where pretty much any photograph of fireflies is going to be beautiful, right? I'm friends on Facebook, on Instagram with every fucking firefly. I'm sorry, Mom. I know my mom's watching. I told her I wouldn't fucking swear in front of all of you. I'm really sorry. But, I know all these firefly photographers, we all do it differently. We're all after different things. Some of us come to it from an activist standpoint. Some of us come from a scientific standpoint, and some of us are just weird assholes who went to get graduate degrees in making art and then found this weird subject they couldn't control that fascinated them and has been obsessing me now for probably 13 years. So once I started working with the digital photography, again, it was the sort of situation where almost every photograph I took was magical because it was like nothing I had ever seen. I was also using a new technique I'd never heard of called image stacking, which is a very common astrophotography technique for reducing noise. But I was, as one astrophotographer said, oh, he's fucking it up on purpose. And I was using it for fireflies. And at a certain point, I started making images that transitioned from being just like cool pictures into something that was a little bit more, something that like when the image popped up on my computer, it got a deep breath instead of just, oh, wow, that's really cool. And this was one of the very first ones I did that did that for me. This was probably in 2014. So this is like 11 years ago. It was just a really windy night, dark road. You know, you can't predict anything. I've been doing this now for long enough that I've realized that every time I try to predict what's going to happen the next season, I am just miserably wrong. So I don't even try anymore. But I started making images to the best of my ability that just sort of transcended just documentation. And I wanted to do things that transported. I wanted to do things that were beautiful. I wanted to do things that gave people joy on some level, which is something, quite honestly, I mean, I don't mean to harp on it, but going back to the graduate school thing, graduate school took, for me, personally, I'm just speaking for myself, it took a lot of the joy out of making art. And so I wanted a little bit more of that back. And it took a long time, and that's why I say I'm a recovering MFA, because it took me a while to just sort of get back to the Larry side of things, not to keep, I'll just say I tangentiate a little bit, and sometimes I lose my way, so I'm hoping that all of you will help keep me on track if I do. So I started to look things less as documentation, and I tried to think of them as collaboration with a subject that didn't care or know that it was collaborating with anybody, which is difficult, I have to say. And my fail rate is honestly embarrassingly high. But I'm also very production oriented. So I work with 4 or 5 cameras at a time. This one I left on the side of the road for 3 hours under camouflage, you know, which is pretty standard operating procedure at this point. I live in Tivoli, and we're kind of blessed with a lot of fireflies in Tivoli. I started really sort of photographing them around there, and then sort of expanded my range. But not very far. I'm not one of those people who's going to travel to see the synchronous fireflies in North Carolina or South Carolina because, well, number one, I have a shitload of anxiety about traveling and I don't want to travel. If it's, you know, more than driving radius of my bed, for the most part, I'm not interested. My winter work I do in New Jersey because I can get there in an evening and then back. So I intensively know this local space. Everything that's you'll see here was done probably within 20 miles of here. Like probably the furthest one would be Kinderhook. So this is all around y'all all summer if you go out and find it at the right times. And, you know, I just keep going. I used to be I used to be kind of manic about it, and I would try to photograph as much as I could in a night and get as many compositions. Each set of exposures is a composition, right? So this one, for example, this is a particularly long one. This is a more recent one. I do fewer photographs now than I did in a night than I did 10 years ago because the exposures are just much longer. So sometimes it'll just be 5 photographs in a night because that's all the cameras I have. This one was about 4.5 hours, which is about as long as I get during a summer night. Summer nights are disappointingly short, unlike winter nights, which are disappointingly hypothermic. And again, I try to, there's nothing I can do to dominate the subject. So when I find the subject, I find a place where I can photograph safely. Again, I work totally out in the open. I have high vis safety gear. Anybody can see me from a mile away. In the winter, I work a lot in like Newark and Elizabeth and some sort of weird place in New Jersey. And people are like, aren't you scared working in Newark at night? I'm like, no, because when I'm working in Newark at night, it's 20 degrees. When I'm working out up here, I'm in people's backyards and they have shotguns. So and people drive drunk up here too a lot. So, those are my two greatest fears, actually. Because all of this is done by the roadside, except for places where I have permission to cross into people's property. And again, it's been even more limited now with the Lyme disease factor, which, not to be, the bummer there, but it sucks. I would avoid it. Actually, these two, the first night I ever left a camera unattended was this photograph. And this was in 2018, I think. And I had an anxiety attack the entire time. And I was about a mile away making this photograph. So these two photographs were made at the exact same time, about a mile and a half mile apart. This is right on the northern outskirts of Tivoli. The other one is over on Lasher Road, for those familiar. By the way, just in terms of, for those familiar with Kingston, the video there that I have running, I'm doing a lot more video now these days, although most of it is with the airplanes, not as much with the fireflies. But that's where the thruway crosses the Sawkill Creek. So if you know the back road to Woodstock, Sawkill Road, if you take that, there's the exit to the right for Ruby, and it's right on that road. And it is dangerous as hell. I was really scared. That is 4 hours of video, cut and cut and cut and cut until I got it down to about 20 seconds, thousands of layers, but all real time. So they're all moving in real speed, just as an explanation for what the video is. But it combined two different projects. I've also photographed truck and commerce reflections off of windows and other such things. So finding that spot on the Sawkill made me particularly happy. Let's see, let's move on. So I try to do different things, different nights. I try to react to what I come across. I try not to predetermine. The more I predetermine, the more hard drive space I waste, if that makes sense, right? So I've started to become, a little bit better about that. But one of the things that I want to do someday is I want to be able to actually fill an entire frame where it's just firefly. And I haven't quite gotten there. This isn't the most, but this one's pretty close. And this, you have to have some pretty extraordinary nights for these to happen. But, I work with what I'm dealt with. This was the setting moon and Venus one night. This took me 3 years to make until I realized that I had to get really, really high. And I don't mean that kind of high, because I already was all the other times before that, but I needed to get the camera up off the ground. I kept taking the picture here and it'd just be this line of fireflies. And then I realized, I got to get the camera really high up. So this was about 14 feet up, because I have this like monster tripod that's as old as I am and almost as heavy. And I can get a camera that high up with it. So this was a lesson. Every picture I take, I'm sorry. I'm going to go backwards, because I was just talking the other night about how, it's instinctive at this point, but I'm trying to remove certain words from my vocabulary, not for political correctness, but just out of my own thing. One of them is take, when I make a picture. And the other one is shoot. and say shooting. I don't know, not really a big. Those seems like projectile oriented rather than receiving exposed. Something. Huh? Exposed. Well, that'll get you into trouble. So you got to watch out for that. You know, we have to be clear about these things. And if anybody of you go out there and follow this person's advice, it's not on me. This is 5 hours. If you look in the on the right there, there's that little piece that's not the right color. That's the dawn. That's the dawn light coming through there. So this was almost 5 hours, about 5 hours of time. And, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of things I love about it. It reveals landscape that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. You see relief that you wouldn't have seen otherwise, vegetation, whatever. It's a map that they know very well, but it's a new one to me, usually. Sorry, I like this one. This was that one took a couple of tries also to get. So remember the one where I said I got really high? This is the same exact spot. This is the house is right in the middle there in between those trees. It's a little bit tighter, but I'm down at ground level and you see how it's just a line. In this case, I like it. And this is also, the blue is dawn light coming in again. So I've learned a lot of things. And, you know, I'm not a scientist. I don't come from a science background, but I'm starting to learn a lot of things. But I'm learning them in more of an intuitive way, largely because I can't remember names. Like I can read Latin better than I can remember Latin, which is saying something. So I never know what species I'm photographing. I just know that they're pretty and they're right in front of me and they're blinking. And I like that. And my cameras like it. And that's kind of almost enough justification for me. Again, yes, people can come and rescind my MFA at any moment. They might burst through that door. Now, this is some straight up firefly porn. I'm sorry, I don't know the general age group here. I'm looking over there on the left. That's what happens. The ones you see flying around in the pictures mostly are all the boys. They're flying around like, choose me, choose me, choose me. And the females are down in the grass waiting for the good signals, and then they flash back. And then the dudes come down and they're all in the grass there on the left. So avert your eyes if you're sensitive to these things. Trigger warning. So they love power lines and the power line cuts, power line right-of-ways. No lights, no cars, no people, very little maintenance of the shrubbery, but enough that they don't get lost in the trees. So I spend a lot of time along the power lines. Sometimes I go back. One of the things that's fun about this, I get to go back different times. These are two pictures that are meant as a diptych, but I made different years. They're of the same power tower, pylon, whatever they're called, from the other side of it. So it's on the right in this picture and on the left in this one. So I get to see how things change over time also, which is another thing that's interesting and honestly usually pretty depressing. Light pollution, ooh, LED security lights, don't get me started. This, if y'all go to Kinko, right? If you make that left to go to Kinko, and there's that Little League baseball field to the left, just across, that's it. So that's those power lines next time you drive up by Kinko. This is what it looks like end of June. A lot of light pollution. This one is also one of the earliest ones I did. This is also from 2014. And I really loved having the human element in it. There's this house that I've now been photographing for about 25 years. And most of the pictures are in the daylight. It hasn't been a serious discipline study. It's just whenever I was in the area, I would take a quick picture of it in the daylight. And then I realized it's full of fireflies. It's in a failed subdivision in Germantown. And nobody has ever occupied this house. So I go back every year and have since then. And the house is slowly, well, every year it's faster and faster getting consumed. And again, nobody's ever lived in it, completely vacant. Same house again. These two pictures were made at the same time. This ended up being the cover of my book, but mostly because this is one of the things that I'm interested in that I found that I didn't predetermine. It's just something that I found while I was doing it, but it's giving me a witness and a gauge to things that are going on. And one of the things that I see here, it's partly just because I'm a nerd about lighting, but what I see here is on the right, there's the town of Germantown, and they still have sodium vapor lighting. And on the right is Saugerties across the river. And they have, on the left is Saugerties across the river. That's the light pollution from them. They've made the switch to LED. So what I want to do is find the same weather patterns with the same similar level of firefly activity and go back and try it again. So this is maybe, I don't know, this is maybe 10 years ago. I witnessed other things. I made this during the pandemic. This is on this really fascinating, weird little road up outside of Saugerties to the north. It's called Augusta Savage Road. And eventually I Googled her, and I highly recommend Googling Augusta Savage. Remember that, Augusta Savage Road. Anyway, strange local and non-local story about people getting screwed in the art world. Anyway, but that was like 100 years ago. So this is on Augusta Savage Road on the Beaver Kill. And, it's kind of cool, there's dead trees, but, the next year, the Comfort Inn or Holiday Inn Express, whatever it is, finally opened next door. And suddenly everything is fully lit. And it's like party lights back there. So this is the same spot the next year. So this is the year before with no ambient lighting. This is the next year with the Holiday Inn Express. There were not as many fireflies. I made it look like there are, but they don't like the light pollution. On the positive side, I think they got a lot of complaints and they've changed the lighting. So now it's almost back to where it was before. This is looking 180 degrees the opposite way. The red light in the middle is the light spill from a flashing red light at the thruway entrance at Saugerties, which is about a half mile away. I see all kinds of other things. Development. There's a great business in Tivoli, to whom I mean no harm, but Lasting Joy Brewery are right next to this. This is a picture I made one night, and at the exact same time I was making this, I made this picture. The cameras were about 20 feet apart, and this is when they were getting ready to bulldoze all the firefly land for the brewery, which kind of bummed me out. But, you know, they're nice. And shit happens, development happens. And there's not much I can do about that. So, yeah, that's sad. So this scene doesn't really fully exist anymore. There's a big, like, wedding reception tent to the right. And, yeah. And you see all kinds of weird shit. These are two pictures that I made the same night, right across the street from each other, directly across the street from each other, both super wide angle lenses and just completely different photographs. And the cameras really were only about 20 feet apart. And, you know, I learn other things. Like I see pictures like this and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if we cropped in a little bit? So you go back a different night after you've scattered it out and you go in with a different lens. And then you end up with something like that. This is one where I started wider and went in a little closer for details the next night. This is all in Stone Ridge. Seth knows where those were. Here's the Catskills. The little red dot on the left is Overlook Mountain, just for reference. This is from right next to that house that's being consumed by nature. Keep out. This is a large plot of land outside of Catskill that's being targeted to developers. It's 40 acres farmland, and it's just coated with fireflies, which, you know, it won't be soon. And so, I don't know, I mean, we're getting pretty close to the end of the slideshow. I'm totally happy to talk about anything and all of it. Oh, here's a weird nerd note. Do y'all remember Comet Neowise? Yeah, Comet Neowise came during the pandemic. That blue line is Comet Neowise. So when you do it with just the individual frame, like one of the maybe 600 frames that are in this picture, you can see the comet with the whole tail and everything. It's pretty wild. But I didn't include that. Sorry. This is the Esopus. This was actually, I believe, a night that I was with you, Seth. I think so. My memory's a little unreliable. This one always reminded me of the photography of the initial milliseconds of nuclear detonations in the military testing during the 50s, the atmospheric testing. They would do photographs of it, ultra high speed. And that's what this one always reminded me of. I get into reflections a lot. reflections, so those are puddles on the bottom, or, portals into an alternate dimension. I like water. My tripods don't. Cameras don't really either, but I do. So I try to plan as much as possible. I'm really centrally oriented compositionally. I like everything right sort of in the middle. And you can't really do that with things you can't control. So I try to do other tricks, doing these in astrophotography. I don't want to demean it, but it's a relatively cheap trick, right? To do the Earth's rotation around Polaris. But I work with what I've got in a spot. I saw this the night before and came back the next night and made it. The light is really weird here because what I didn't know, I left the camera on the side of the road again. The clouds in the middle under the Catskills there, that was the 4th of July Saugerties fireworks display. That had I been 20 feet to the left, I would have gotten. This is one night when I was starting to feel the effects of my first go with limes. So it's really weird. I look at this picture and I don't know about y'all, but this picture gives me intense anxiety, but I'm not gonna dwell on that. I'm like, oh shit. Because 2 nights later, I was in the emergency room. This is somebody who has this amazing piece of land in Kinderhook. That's their mansion up above. And they let me work there. They have an incredible population of fireflies. And in fact, they have one that I believe, after years of observation, is in fact synchronous and is not known to be. And so I'm presenting data to a scientist who specializes in synchronous fireflies who I've worked with before. Anyway, I'm hoping that I found something. But if I did, it's at this property. This is also right down the street from Seth, although he wasn't with me this night. That's lightning. One frame of lightning in the sky. I mean, without an actual bolt, but that's just what lit it up. This night kind of blew my mind a little bit. This exposure isn't even that long. I felt like I had to turn the camera off because it was going to be too much. Not like that's not. Or that. Here we get to dawn again. This is the only picture I've probably ever admitted to creating using my flashlight, using the light painting technique. It's the only one I'll ever fess up to. But I just loved the graffiti, build an empire, which is something that I hope fireflies eventually get to do in, say, 1 billion years when we're gone. Wait, did I say that out loud? Yeah, all right. That's it. So, yeah. I forgot so much stuff. But it doesn't matter. We're here now. Anybody questions?
What's the craziest experience you've ever had when you've been out?
Oh, what's the craziest experience I've ever had when I've been out at night? And I sighed And I sighed because I have absolutely no clue how to narrow it down. Every night is, it's magic. It's a place we're not really supposed to be. And every night is kind of wild. I mean, yeah, do I run into some crazy people? There might even be one or two. I don't know if he made it. Is Soggy Tuna here? No, he didn't make it. There's one, I don't know how many of y'all were here for Tim Davis's talk recently? You? One day, Tim was wandering around Kingston and found these two surveyors, and he photographed them, and one of them was just starting out as a surveyor and trying to figure out the job. And then later that night, I was photographing up in West Camp, up north of Saugerties, and on Lauren Tice Road, which I Googled and found nothing of interest. So stick with Augusta Savage. And so I'm out there making photographs, and suddenly I hear somebody who had totally snuck up behind me, which I'm not used to because I'm pretty aware of what's going on around me. This dude got right up behind me, and I ended up spending 4 hours with him that night. Showed me a bunch of places. Sister has an organic farm around the corner. He took me to this abandoned golf course. I mean, I had, I have, 80 or 100 cops who follow me on Instagram, right? So, I mean, if that means anything, because the first thing I do, I call my phone the cop whisperer. And the first thing I do when I'm confronted with law enforcement, which I must admit happens much more when I'm working in New Jersey at night. But either way, I call my phone the cop whisperer. I pull it out. I always have the website uploaded and related to whatever it is that I'm doing at the moment. And I show it to them and they go, whoa. And I'm like, I'm in. Doesn't always work with state troopers though. So, state troopers, they're a little bit more hardcore, but the local guys and the county guys, you can usually get in with them, and they usually have Instagram too, which is nice. And yeah, so I really don't know how to answer that because I've met so many strange and interesting people. I've had so many things happen to me. I've been the first responder, like literally the first responder to the point of witnessing accidents at 4 or 5 car accidents now, only one of which was almost fatal and involved lots of blood, but I've seen a lot. So I wouldn't know how to narrow that down other than to just sort of list off weird things that I can remember, like I just sort of did. Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
So how long are these exposures for? Or like, I guess, you said that these were compilations of like multiple exposures.
Yes.
Over the course of like 4 or 5 hours? Or?
Yes. So the question was the duration of the exposures. It's I wouldn't say it's a complicated answer, but these are all composites of many different sequential photographs. So the camera is locked on a tripod with steel shot bags, especially in the wind. And the exposures are anywhere from 1 hour up to 5 or so. And they can be anywhere from 200 or 300 individual exposures up to, I think the worst I got was like 2,200 exposures, which takes up a lot of hard drive space. I'll tell you that. Speaking of anxiety and money, yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the technical side of it is yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but Yeah, I don't know. I don't, it's relatively straightforward also too, if you do astrophotography. So it's not really something that I tend to dwell on. I tend to dwell more on the sort of experience of it. But that's to basically answer your question. Yeah, they're really long. Each individual exposure is maybe 10 to 15 seconds.
And you're driving like a laptop where you control the shutter, please?
No, I just, I have a shutter release cable and I go click and I lock it on and I walk away
Nice.
after putting camouflage on it. Yes.
Can you reiterate how you scout?
Can I reiterate how I scout? Is this from a conversation we had?
No, I would like to know how you scout.
Oh my God, I could do a whole presentation just on that. Scout what? The airplanes or the fireflies? The fireflies, I mean, it's gotten to the point now I've figured out, I know how to find fireflies more or less just by looking at Google Maps. Because I go by texture and I go by water features. So I know what they like. I know what they're looking for. I know the rough texture of the vegetation that they like. And then I scout those places. So what often happens is if I go to a place that just has a ton of fireflies, I can set up 5 cameras in one place and just be there with them all and maybe spend all night and contemplate the universe. Other nights I have 5 cameras all over the place. In between, checking on each one, because a lot of it is patrolling them and making sure they're, like still there. Those nights I also do a lot of scouting. So when I'm driving around in between the cameras, because sometimes, depending on the night, if it's a really sparse night, sometimes they're 20 miles apart, the cameras. And so it really takes a lot of time to get back and forth between them. And I get to scout in the process as well, and then take notes for the next night, and preferably not hit any deer, because that sucks. Yes, in the back there. Oh, I'm sorry. And you too. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been in the area for almost 30 years, and I noticed, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, the population of fireflies where I live in Gardner has diminished.
Has diminished?
I'm noticing a similar phenomena as you're doing your scouting and you're out in the field.
Yes and no. So yes, there are places that change. There are places that I lose from light pollution. But what I've really noticed is that every year is different and every year kicks my ass. And so if I say, I keep thinking like right now, I'm like, I got this shit figured out because it's been so cold all May, they're going to be delayed. Right. But I'm getting reports of them. So I'm wrong already, and I haven't even started photographing for the year. I don't know if that even remotely answers your question, but yeah, you can feel free to get me back on track if I tangentiated. Carla?
Yeah, I'm assuming you speak fireflies, so if you heard fireflies speak, which you do, like what would they tell us humans to do to make them cozier and give them good habitats and things? Like what have you learned about
They don't give a shit about us.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I've learned. They would not bother to talk to us. They don't care. I don't speak firefly. I feel a little bit of firefly, just a little, and just enough to keep me coming back each year and getting a little bit more. But it's, yeah, they're just going to do what they do, and we're going to do what we do. And I mean, that's kind of a depressing answer to it, but they don't really give a shit one way or the other. They all go out and they're just trying to spread their genome. And if there's 10,000 of them or 20 of them, Yeah, so they don't tell me anything, which is good because I'd probably get really overwhelmed if I could actually, because I mean, there are hundreds of the freaking things out there. And if they were all talking, like I can't even maintain like a one-on-one conversation, let alone that. I mean, holy shit. Yeah, I don't think there's any adjustment to my medication protocol that would allow for me to handle that level of communication. Yes, Kate.
Can you speak about how your process has transformed your relationship with time and the role that patience plays in your picture?
Yes, I can. It's something I think about an immense amount.
Repeat the question.
Oh, repeat the question. How has doing this work changed my relationship with time? And it's changed my relationship with time in every conceivable way. I think about it all the time. I'm a very antsy, sort of impatient person. I don't, I have a hard time sitting down in one place for a long time, except for when I'm drugged by carbohydrates on the bakery porch. Or Sean, it's your fault, Sean. It's made me a much, much, much more patient person, and that has translated a lot into my personal life as well. Photography for me, honestly, it's not really about the final product. I mean, it was beaten out of me in grad school that process was worth anything. But to me, process is almost oftentimes more important than the ending product. Sometimes just the interaction with a human, or the interaction with the landscape, or the interaction with an insect, whatever it is. I learned a couple weeks ago in this like sketchy park in Toronto where I had to go. It was the farthest I'd been from home in years. And I went and I tried to make an airplane video, and I went to this like weird sketchy park near the airport. And I snuck down into this like drainage pond that I knew I wasn't supposed to be at. And there were all these kind of weird sounds, and it was kind of freaking me out because it's Canada, and I don't know anything about Canada. I mean, they seem like us, but it's, it's different. And so I'm standing there. I stood in one spot without moving, except to occasionally look over and make sure that the camera was still recording. I didn't leave my footprints for an hour and a half. And that was primarily a contemplative space. It had a lot to do with time. And I mean, I don't know, this is the kind of thing I could talk about time all night and how it's changed my relationship with time. I know how to fold time. I do weird things now. Okay, if you didn't think I was nuts before, you will after this. I've been playing this game, right? So when I'm heating up my coffee in the microwave and it gets down to 1 second, I try to see how long I can go until I pop the door open without it beeping. Right? And I sit there, and I can tell you, it's mind-blowing, but you can cram an enormous amount of shit into 1 second of thought. And you can have multiple things, and then suddenly, boom, and you're like, damn, that was like 0.95. That was a record. No, I don't know how long it is, but it's just, it's not an OCD thing. It's not something I've been doing since I was, 8. It's just something that I've played with. And it's because my belief is time is a human construct. Time actually means literally nothing. And 1 second or 1/8,000th of a second or 3 hours or 10 hours or 10 years, honestly, on a geological or pretty much any other level, it's all the same. Does that answer your question? All right. Kathy.
In your talk, you mentioned synchronous fireflies, and I can't imagine that you meant that they all lived at the same time. So what did you mean by synchronous fireflies?
There are species of fireflies in the world, and I believe that I have found one. Shh. That actually synchronize with each other. And there are scientists that are trying to figure it out. In the Great Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, there's actually every year a lottery to be allowed into the national park to see the synchronous fireflies. They only show up for a couple weeks. It doesn't matter who you are, you have to get in on this lottery, and that's the only way to get in. And they will go through these periods of time where 60, 70, 80, 100, 200 of them will go in and out of perfect sync. And so the whole sort of forest will kind of light up in areas like Christmas lights. And, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, I have to tell you, the photographs have nothing to do with the actual experience of seeing them and being out in the field of fireflies. It's nothing like that. It's not a fabrication. It's literal. It's factual. It's almost documentary. The only thing I remove from the photographs are frames with cars and car headlights. I lost track of where I was when I started thinking about retouching, because that was a trigger, because I have a bunch of retouching I'm not doing for work. Sorry. Get me back on track, Kathy.
Well, you apparently there are.
Yes, there are synchronous fireflies. Yes.
At the same time.
Yeah, and it's nuts. I've only seen video of it because, again, it's too far for me to go, and then I would miss my fireflies here that I'm used to. They're not mine. I'm theirs, actually. I have a contractual arrangement with them. I can't leave. Yeah, no, they're it's amazing. You can just look it up on YouTube. Just synchronous fireflies, and you'll see shit you never thought you'd see. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yes. If you were to photograph the synchronized fireflies.
The what? The synchronized?
Fireflies. Would it alter the image?
The question is, if I were to photograph synchronized fireflies, would it alter the image? And the answer is abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, it wouldn't matter. You'd not be able to tell. They would just look like fireflies. So in a still image, it wouldn't make a tiniest bit of difference. If you're doing a video, yeah, you would see it in video. But if I took the video and then I folded it the way I work with video, where I cut and layer, you would start to lose the sync after a while. So yeah, the only way to really see it is just as a straight visual experience. Yeah, as a linear experience, if you will. Yeah. Follow up, Kathy?
We can see your stills in your wonderful book, but where can we see your videos?
There are a couple of them on my website. She wants to know where to see the videos. I'm trying to get some on my website, but the airplanes definitely are there. The airplane videos I'm a little more excited about than the firefly videos, but the firefly videos they're fun. Airplanes are what I do during the winter because the nights are long and cold, and I go to New Jersey and photograph air traffic patterns using a similar technique. So also sometimes up to 5 hours long of air traffic in and out of Newark Airport mostly for the past few years. And they sort of synchronize, the airplanes, not like the fireflies though. Okay, you had a question. Have I had any startling animal encounters? Yes.
Who have you seen?
Huh?
Who startled who?
Both. The one that came to mind immediately was one night I was in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and I was trespassing on CSX property, trying to get video out of Newark Airport because it was right by the airport. And I'm standing in the road and I hear a kerfuffle, and I look into the weeds about 60 feet away, and this raccoon shoots out of the weeds. And it's running straight at me. And I was like, holy shit. You know, I've lived in the country for a long time. I've seen a lot of raccoons. None of them have run straight at me. I was like, this raccoon wants to kill me. And so I did the only thing I know how to do, which is what I do with dogs, which is I just got big and moved forward and tried to look aggressive. And then as I was doing that, it started to turn, and I was like, whoa, I can't believe that worked. And then just as it was turning, the second raccoon came out of the woods. And so the first raccoon was being chased by the second raccoon, had no clue I was there, until it came running straight out at me, 100% by coincidence. And so I think we freaked each other out pretty good. So that's the one that comes to mind. Yeah, animal interactions. That was a good one. Yeah. And it was also like one of those humbling moments, because I was like, oh, I thought it was coming after me. I was like, why did I center myself like that? It was just running for its life from someone else. And then I got in its way. And maybe it's dead now because of that. I don't know. It's a raccoon. They killed some of my chickens. I don't care. So, I mean, that's all right. I don't mean that about all raccoons. Not the cute ones, just the ones that kill chickens. Any other?
How long is the firefly season around here? Like, I think it started like a week or two ago, but it was warmer out. And I think that, I know it's really high during like 4th of July. We just go past August or?
The question was, how long is the season around here? And it varies every year. Like I said before, it kicks my ass every year, changes every time. Usually it's like late May into mid to late July. Like I have sort of a scale of fireflies that I need to satisfy my perverse needs for luciferin, which by the way is the chemical that, one of the chemicals in the fireflies, it's luciferin and luciferase. Yeah, I started talking about chemistry and I went off track. Get me back.
How long is the season? Yeah, season like.
Oh yeah, they're usually around still at the end of July and a little bit into August. Each species generally only stays flashing for about 3 weeks. So it goes for about a month and a half, 2 months, but that's the overlap of different species in different places. So if you have a quote unquote monoculture in a certain area, you might only have fireflies for 3 weeks. So, but if you have a range of species, you'll sort of have them across the period. Sean? I believe that in the world there are 2,200 known species. Around here, I believe the number is around 20. But I think it's more. But I can't remember Latin names. So I can't quantify that to anyone who would really, really care. But that's another thing. Does that answer? Yeah. All right. So someone else. My notes,
Yeah.
like for the talk?
You mentioned that you note places. Are you using GPS? Are you just intuitively? Are you reenacting sort of shots that you've taken before?
Oh, no, it's just in my brain. It's just, I keep it all in my brain. I look at it and I go, oh, that looks cool. It's out near that other picture I took that one time. And so I started to do that because, again, I can't remember road names as well as Latin names or people's names, honestly. Sorry to anyone tonight. Yeah. Does that answer it? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I know you don't want to talk too much about the technical part, but when you were saying, oh, this is 5 hours, so that's not a shutter being open for 5 hours, obviously. But what
No,
would
it's,
that fi-
it's, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
what would make up that 5 hours?
Thousands of individual raw files.
And how are you manipulating the camera to get all those? Like, you're obviously not opening the shutter.
No, I have it on sequential, right, shutters, and I put in a cable release and I just lock it on and I walk away. Yep, and it just keeps going. My little photon collection robots, basically. That's what a camera is. I mean, it's a small industrial robot that collects photons. Yeah, and I'm just the robot operator.
So I thought that the length of the flash of the firefly is related to temperature. Do you have a preferred temperature when you go out as far as just dealing with like the trail lights?
It does not affect their flashing. No, it affects their activity though. So, you know, if I go out at night and it starts out 65 degrees, there's going to be a bunch of fireflies out. But if a cold front comes through and by midnight it's 58 degrees, they say good night and they stop. But this year might be different because it's so cold and they might not have any choice. So I don't know. We'll see what June brings. Yeah.
Do you photograph every night in the season? And when do you see? I guess my question.
The question is, are you sane? No, the question is, do I photograph every night during the season and when do I sleep? The answer is I actually flip my schedule 100% for about a month and a half. Usually a month and a half is about all I can take before I just fucking fall apart. And, you know, so I take my daytime pills at night and I take my nighttime pills in the morning when I get home. I joke it's the only 9 to 5 job I've ever had. It just starts at 9 at night, ends at 5 in the morning. It's actually the shortest of my work nights is in the summer because it stays light so late and gets light so early. It makes me mad. I wish it was just long, dark nights like my soul. Sorry. I'm getting tired at this point. So no, did that answer your question at all? Yeah. All right. Can I speak about them?
May I?
Oh, yes.
I didn't know if you showed the release.
I didn't, no.
I'm just curious, that when I watch your light films, the anxiety that runs through me is incredible.
Oh, same.
Where like firefly is really common. And watching this like LED and nonstop lights.
Yeah.
I
I can tell you again, I go back to where I said that the experience of seeing the fireflies in person is very different than the photographs. One of the things that I find is that certain species and certain concentrations give me extraordinary anxiety because they flash very, very fast. They're throughout your entire field of vision. And I mean, I mentioned earlier, I have a scale, and it's like, it's 1 to 5. And usually I want like a 3 and up, right? In terms of that's how many fireflies I want somewhere to be able to commit cameras. And 5 is like a pretty severe traumatic brain injury. Like you just got hit with a 2x4. And it's really, it fills, I mean, it's not every night, but certain nights it can really alter your mood, not always for the better. And then other species have the exact opposite effect. And the airplanes, I can say actually that's probably the most calming work that I do for me personally. It's, I view, I mean, I look at my work through a lot of different things. I went to school for way too long to learn how to do this shit. But at the end of the day, for me, work is therapy. Doing it keeps my brain active. It keeps my brain quiet as well. It keeps my brain focused, which is not something I get to have much in daily life. And the airplanes are actually, it's funny, if you'll forgive me, just this little tangent, the fireflies are completely random. There's no way I can control them. And that includes when I'm looking at them, right? But the airplanes are actually extremely engineered and controlled. They're all being flown by computers for the most part, and they're going to specific waypoints that I can predict and know. So I can create those compositions ahead of time in ways that I can't with the fireflies. And one of the things that's interesting to me from an experiential versus photographic standpoint is the fireflies sort of represent sort of the noise, the sort of amplified noise in my brain sometimes. And they can give me a lot of anxiety. But the airplanes have, honestly, the structure and continuity that my brain actually craves, right? Huh?
For me, it's the absolute opposite.
Yeah, but the videos, the airplane videos and photographs to me, actually, I used to think that they would help me with my fear of flying, but the actual result themselves, I'm like, fuck that, I don't want to get in the air. They kind of terrify me a little bit more. So no, as a product, as content, they do cause me some anxiety. But in the process of making them, it's, well, you've seen it. It's just, it's like this weird clarity, the airplanes in particular for me. So I don't know. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. I think that wasn't really the product was to say, but it's also thinking about the idea of following patterns either way.
I'm looking for patterns.
Taking photographs, taking drawings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's surprising.
Every single time that I process a picture, I mean, sometimes I don't get to see these pictures for years because I don't get to keep up with processing them fully each year. So they'll sit in a folder in hard drives forever until I finally do it. Am I getting yanked? Okay, wait. Oh, no, stop. Shh. One more question. Okay, Carla.
Why are you so awesome?
It's the drugs. Thank you for coming. Thank you.